Okay, in this talk I'm going to cover convention actions, which are the mechanical core of the political game. The political side isn't so mechanical as the operational game, but certain transactions need to be sort of formalised in game terms, and for this you need to take convention actions. Convention actions is kind of a grandiose title really for any sort of deal done face to face with other people. And it represents when you've left the safety of your of the telegraph office or your army and your headquarters, and you've gone somewhere to speak to somebody face to face and expose yourself to, and it says they're all forms of assassination. The reason for this is because people are quite paranoid about being assassinated, and in game terms, the convention actions are powerful enough that you might want to risk taking them, even though somebody might have it in for you and try to do you in or arrest you and subsequently presumably have you shot, because that's what happens to people who get arrested. There are several flavours of convention action. Provide patronage is sort of the bread and butter one, and there are a whole bunch to do with operating political parties, which are important but probably won't come up frequently. And then there are some to do with appointing government jobs, which possibly won't even come up at all, because it would require the country to be reasonably stable, or at least part of the country to be reasonably stable, at which point you can sort of try and form a provisional government and give people jobs in that provisional government. Otherwise, the jobs are there as things to promise people in a future government that might happen after the game, so they're kind of bargaining chips mostly, though the game may reach a stable enough state for them to be relevant, or certainly in some parts of the map it might. Anyway, in this talk, there are also several people who have abilities that they can use as convention actions, like the assassinations I mentioned earlier, but other ones as well. And there are plenty of people who have abilities that modify these actions, that particularly provide patronage. In this talk, I'm going to cover provide patronage, because it's kind of the bread and butter. In the next one, I will cover actions related to operating political parties, and maybe the jobs thing, or I might take that into another video if the other one runs long. Okay, so provide patronage is covered down here at the sidebar, which explains that providing patronage is giving people jobs and doing them favours. And if you're powerful, then you can give people jobs without really impacting your own power, and they will benefit more from it the bigger your power is. If your support is lower than somebody else's, you can still provide patronage to them, where this isn't really providing patronage. Really, it's more a case of you endorsing their campaign and transferring some of your support to them as you do that. So the table shows that you compare your support to the person you're providing patronage to. If your support is much lower than theirs, you can't actually benefit them by providing the patronage because you're too insignificant to them. If it's quite close to theirs, within 3, you give them 1 point of support. But if it's higher than that, you give them support, but it doesn't cost you anything. So you could generate support out of the ether, which is really just political manoeuvring and shenanigans going on in the background, rather than actually magically generating support out of the ether. And if your support is 6 higher than your targets, your recipient support, then they gain 2. So it's quite a big chunk more, but that's quite a big difference between the two of you. So you're quite a lot more influential than they are. I think that's the core of this rule. You are only allowed to do this action once per turn, although you can receive it as many times as you like. So if you can persuade other people to give you lots of support, good for you, I say. A lot of people have actions that modify this ability by increasing its effects or by reducing the costs, which will encourage them to do it more often. And I expect most people will be involved in this most turns, provided they can find people they trust to do it with. Okay, I think that's enough on this subject now, so I'll stop and go on to political parties in a minute.